Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Homam Divyam Manasham Cha
Homam Divyam Manasam Cha
Mahitvam Karma Yogajam
Mahitvam Karma Yogajam.
Yash Chakre Niryaupamyam
Yash Chakre
Chakre
Niryaupamyam.
Niryaupamyam.
Purushanu Janapriya.
Purushanu
Purushanu Janapriya.
Yes. Someone like to read?
I can read to you.
Yes.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
You go ahead, Pranav Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Translation. As great follower and devotee of the sage Narad, Maharaj Priyavrat considered hellish the opulences he had achieved by dint of fruitive activities and mystic power, whether in the lower or heavenly planetary systems or in human society. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Rupa Goswami has said that the position of a devotee is so super excellent that a devotee does not consider any material opulence worth having. There are different types of opulences on earth, in the heavenly planets, and even in the lower planetary systems known as Patal. A devotee, however, knows that they are all material and consequently is not at all interested in them. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Param Drishtva Nivartate. Sometimes yogis and jnanis voluntarily give up all material opulences to practice their system of liberation and taste spiritual bliss. However, they frequently fall down because artificial renunciation of material opulences cannot endure. One must have a superior taste in spiritual life. Then he can give up material opulence. Maharaj Priyavrat had already tasted spiritual bliss, and therefore he had no interest in any of the material achievements available in the lower, higher, or middle planetary systems. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the purports to the 5th canto, 1st chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrat. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So, Maharaj Priyavrat considered all the material opulences to be hellish. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this regard, he says, Dvaite Bhadra Bhadra Gyan, Sam Manodharma. That there is something Bhadra, Bhadra, something is nice, something is not nice. This is just some imagination. Ehi bhala, ehi manda, ehi sabha brahma. This material world, that this is good and this is bad, all this is just an imagination. Ehi sabha brahma, just an illusion. Because in this material world, everything is having a beginning and an end. So what is the question of being good in this world? For example, the opulence is acquired by great demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, even Brahma himself. They're all finished. In due course of time, everything is finished. And as we have seen in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that at the time of partial destruction, Ardha Pralaya, at that time, these great personalities who reside in the planets like Janalok, Taplok, and Maharlok, even they are frightened by the violent rise of the causal ocean. So you can imagine how horrifying this material world is. So if such great personalities can also feel the pangs of material nature, what is our position? What is our condition? So there is no question of anything good in this material world, whether it is up to the planet of Brahma or down to Patal Lok. Patal Lok is the last layer. Tal, Atal, Sutal, Vital, Patal. So this is like Patal is the last planetary system before the causal ocean. Between Patal and causal ocean, only hellish planets are present, which are like subtle. Of all the gross planets, Patal Lok is literally the last. It's the bottom of the material world. And even there is some sort of possession, there is some sort of happiness. These Bilaswargas, which are below the earthly planetary systems, even they have very high standards of happiness. But it's all temporary. Because in due course of time, material nature destroys everything. So, in Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned, Param Drishtva Nivartate. So one who has seen the highest truth, one who has understood the absolute truth, he'll be able to give up material attachments. It's really simple. See, the living entity by very nature is always seeking happiness. Anandamayo Bhyasa is always seeking happiness. But in this material world, he's unable to see what is real happiness. Consciousness is manifest through the filter of material body. And therefore, whatever is present in front of him, he acquires that as a means of happiness. If you see, for example, as a human being, human beings enjoy what kind of things? Material possessions. What kind of possessions human beings enjoy? They enjoy the association of beautiful women. They enjoy acquiring jewelry. They acquire properties. They acquire automobiles. And that's a standard of happiness. For an animal, these things have no meaning. A golden necklace studded with diamonds has no value for a monkey. Monkey will not find it of any use. He may see it as a curiosity, but will not find any value in that. And one may laugh, that monkey, what can a monkey know? But in reality, we are also not very intelligent, because we find pleasure in such things and we think that these pleasures are permanent. In reality, this is just an illusion. Ehi sabha brahma. So those who are pure devotees, once they have tasted the nectar of devotional service to Krishna, they are able to give up material attachment. Yogis and Jnanis, they are able to give up material opulences, but they are not able to give up ahankara. And as long as ahankara is present, the living entity will be attracted to material nature, gross or subtle. The yogis and Jnanis, they are not able to cross the domain of Maya. They'll reach up to the level of Brahman, but they are not able to transcend it. And therefore, when the opportunity arises, senses drag them down back into material spheres. And therefore, Mayavadis, Jnanis, they again fall into altruistic activities. Humanity. Now, having said that, one should be very particular about this. We're not talking about a gross fall down of a Jnani or a yogi. It's not that a yogi or Jnani will run away with a beautiful woman or he'll start acquiring wealth. No, this is very subtle fall down. In this material world, for instance, the attraction between the child and the mother, child and the parent, even that is a material attachment. Even that is strong enough to drag one living entity back into material domain. Now, one may think, what can be so gross about the loving attraction between a mother and a son? But even that is enough to prolong the material existence of both the living entities who consider themselves mother and child respectively. Very subtle attraction, almost sublime, but still material. So yogis and Jnanis, they fall for this kind of material attachment, which is very subtle and gradual. So altruism, what is altruism? Why would anyone want to help someone who's needy? And what could be wrong in that? If you go out in this world and you really see, like especially in India, you have a lot of chance of seeing this. You go out and see, there's a lot of poverty, people are suffering. And if you have the means, you try to help them, they are very grateful to you. So what could possibly be wrong with that? But what is wrong with that is that it is still on the material platform. And that is the subtle fall down of a yogi. A yogi is not able to, his conscience doesn't allow him to think that this is bad. So he thinks it's good to be altruistic, and therefore he falls down. The fall down of a yogi is in the mode of goodness. And to people like us, to untrained, barbaric people like us, that may not even seem like a fall down. So we need the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master like Srila Prabhupada, who can very subtly distinguish what is material and what is spiritual. Anyone can tell you what is good and what is bad. 4 regulative principles, breaking 4 regulative principles is bad. Performing activities in Krishna consciousness is good. You don't need a spiritual master to tell you that. It's very easy. But to distinguish between what is material and what is spiritual, for that you need the expert advice of a spiritual master. If you're eating meat, I don't need to be a self-realized soul to tell you that it is bad for you. Even a Mayavadi can tell you. But to distinguish very subtly, what is material, what is spiritual, that your attachment to your family is material, it has got nothing to do with spiritual life, that requires the guidance of an expert spiritual master who will tell you what dharma to follow and what dharma to relinquish. So bhakti is a very subtle process, and it must be done under the guidance of an expert guru. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments here? Okay, so we continue. Text. So chapter 2, the activities of Maharaj Agnidhar. Text 1. Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Vacha.
Evam Pitari संप्रवृत्ते तद अनुशासने वर्तमान आग्निद्रो
एवं पितरि संप्रवृत्ते तद अनुशासने वर्तमान अग्निद्रो
जम्बू दीपौकस प्रजा औरसवद धर्मावेक्षमाण पर्यगोपाय
जम्बूद्वीपौकसः प्रजा औरसवद धर्मावेक्षमाण पर्योगपायत्.
Yes, would someone like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, may I read?
Yes, please.
Translation. Shri Sukadev Goswami continues. After his father, Maharaj Priyavrat, departed to follow the path of spiritual life by undergoing austerities, King Agnidhra completely obeyed his order. Strictly observing the principles of religion, he gave full protection to the inhabitants of Jambudvip as if they were his own begotten sons. Purport. Following the instruction of his father, Maharaj Priyavrat, Maharaj Agnidhra ruled the inhabitants of Jambudvip according to religious principles. These principles are exactly contrary to the modern principles of faithlessness. As clearly stated here, the king protected the citizens the way a father protects his begotten children. How he ruled the citizens is also described here. Dharma Vekshamana, strictly according to religious principles. It is the duty of the executive head of a state to see that the citizens strictly follow religious principles. The Vedic religious principles begin with Varnashram Dharma, the duties of the 4 Varnas and 4 Ashrams. Dharma refers to principles given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first principle of Dharma or religion is to observe the duties of the 4 orders as enjoined by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to people's qualities and activities, society should be divided into Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, and then again into Brahmacharis, Grihasthas, Vanaprasthas, and Sannyasis. These are religious principles, and it is the duty of the head of the state to see that his citizens strictly follow them. He should not merely act officially. He should be like a father who is always a well-wisher of his sons. Such a father strictly observes whether his sons are performing their duties, and sometimes he also punishes them. Just contrary to the principles mentioned here, the presidents and the chief executives in the age of Kali are simply tax collectors who do not care whether the religious principles are observed. Indeed, the chief executives of the present day introduce all kinds of sinful activity, especially illicit sex, intoxication, animal killing, and gambling. These sinful activities are now very prominently manifested in India. Although 100 years ago, these 4 principles of sinful life were strictly prohibited in the families of India, they have now been introduced into every Indian family. Therefore, they cannot follow religious principles. In contrast to the principles of the kings of old, the modern state is concerned only with propaganda for levying taxes and is no longer responsible for the spiritual welfare of the citizens. The state is now callous to the religious principles. Srimad Bhagavatam predicts that in Kali Yuga, the government will be entrusted with Dasyu Dharma, which means occupational duty of rogues and thieves. Modern heads of state are rogues and thieves who plunder the citizens instead of giving them protection. Rogues and thieves plunder without regard for law. But in this age of Kali, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, the lawmakers themselves plunder the citizens. The next prediction to be fulfilled, which is already coming to pass, is that because of the sinful activities of the citizens and the government, rain will become increasingly scarce. Gradually, there will be complete drought and no production of food grains. People will be reduced to eating flesh and seeds, and many good spiritually inclined people will have to forsake their homes because they will be too harassed by drought, taxation, and famine. The Krishna consciousness movement is the only hope to save the world from such devastation. It is the most scientific and authorized movement for the actual welfare of the whole human society. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. So after his father, Maharaj Priyavrat departed to follow the path of spiritual life by undergoing austerities, King Agnidhar completely obeyed his order. strictly observing the principles of religion, he gave full protection to the inhabitants of Jambudvip as if they were his own begotten sons. This protection. Now, this is a very interesting point. Srila Prabhupada makes this point again and again. We have seen this in the first canto, we've seen this in the third canto also. That it is the duty of a king to protect the spiritual life of the populace. It's not just a question of some sort of economic development or some kind of, illusory progress, what we call development and progress. All that is nonsense. Because no matter how much developed you are, you're not going to live beyond 80, 90 years. So there is no point in developing material nature to such an extent that it looks fantastic, but we are not there to enjoy it. So in reality, the only real development is spiritual. Material development makes no sense. Our forefathers were living poverty-stricken lives by some standards, but in reality, they were happier. They didn't need some kind of, antidepressants. They did not need sleeping pills. They did not have relationship anxieties. They did not have economic anxieties. They lived peaceful lives. In fact, as far back as 80s, I can remember, food was always in plenty. There was no question of scarcity of food. Today, food is so expensive. Like to go if you visit someone, the other person is always worried that you may stay for too long and eat too much. This wasn't the case even 30, 40 years ago in India. But now it is. So what is the development that we are having? So dharma, most important thing is that, the spiritual life of the population should be protected. But today we see that even in a country like India, meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex and gambling are institutional. Meat, of course, India is the largest exporter of meat in the world. 70% of India is now non-vegetarian as compared to 50% in the 80s. So you can imagine that meat eating has risen to such phenomenal extent in India. So this is meat eating. Then intoxication. So tea and coffee, now people don't even consider them intoxicants. Tea and coffee, they're so common in every Indian household. So tea and coffee. And government also, and cigarettes, tea, coffee, alcohol, government derives healthy profits from them. So we can see intoxication, then gambling. So this, this what do you call those gambling websites in India? This cricket gambling websites, this IPL. What is this? This is just gambling. Only a fool will believe that IPL is some kind of an innocent sport or some kind of an honest sport. This is complete rigged nonsense that goes on. And government actively encourages it. So, and there are these cricket betting websites, Dream 11, and there are on the last count there were around 75 cricket betting websites in India, which are now betting on cricket, football, hockey, lawn tennis, and even Ludo. So you see, and government is actually encouraging all of these. Cricket Dream 11 has a valuation of around 40,000 crore rupees. Can you imagine that? So you see, the government is making money out of these principles. Then illicit sex, this Bollywood entertainment industry, all this is illicit sex. And government actually promotes it. We even have some ministers who are illicit sex mongers. One of these actresses is a minister now. Two of the actresses. So you see. So how can king protect the people when he himself is afflicted by these sinful habits? But taxes are very due. No government in this world will avoid taxation. Their taxes will be very well taken care of. The government doesn't care whether you live or die, but it just wants to know that you have paid your taxes properly. So you see, so dasyus, dasyu dharma, demons and dacoits. Dasyu means dacoit. So dacoits are ruling. So if a devotee thinks that this government is good or that government is good, then devotee is a fool number one. He has no understanding of the scriptures. He has no understanding of Acharya Siddhanta. So you see, and such a demonic ruler will also suffer in hell forever. So, Daivam natatsyan na patishya sasyan na mochayet yaha samupetya mrityum. One who cannot deliver his dependents, he should not become a patish, he should not become a husband or a king also. Pati also means king, by the way. Pati, the word pati translates in English as husband, and the word husband in English means economy. To husband means to economize. So we can see that one should not become a leader. Guru nasasyat swajano nasasyat, pita nasasyat janani nasasyat, mother and father. So mother and father, they are the primary rulers. So they should be the first one to inculcate the habits of dharma. So one cannot say, hey, my child is sinful, what can I do? No, you will have to explain this to Yamraj, why your child became sinful, why you couldn't protect your child. The king also has to answer to Yamraj, why he couldn't protect the Praja when he took their responsibility. And that's the reason why these great kings were so reluctant to become kings. You see, Priyavrata was not happy at all to become the king. He had to be convinced by Brahma, the father of the universe. So you see, because he knew his responsibility very well. The one who is responsible, he would not allow any nonsense to go on. We see Parikshit Maharaj. So this pastime is being narrated to him. Parikshit Maharaj himself was in so much anxiety because he saw people becoming sinful and he wanted to protect them. So therefore, it is very important that the king protects dharma, not just the physical bodies of the people. That anyone can protect. That is of no use. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments? Yes, Anandam Prabhu, you wanted to ask something?
No, perfect. That was very, very nicely explained how governments are in the Kali Yuga, if they are not leading their ruling on the basis of scriptures, if they don't have any bona fide spiritual master, they definitely cannot be good rulers. You can see in the past also that great kings ruled according to the guidance they received from the great personalities. Either they were inspired by Narad Muni or even Acharyas, or even to the latest, when we used to discuss in person, we used to say even the last dynasty or the last time when Varnashram Dharma was very closely followed was at the time of Chandragupta Maurya, who was even guided by Chanakya. So able Brahmana, a bona fide Brahmana who is well versed with the scriptures and self-realized only can guide, and the ruler, if he's taking such a guidance, then only we can say it is a proper guidance. Elsewise, we are just becoming sentimental in these matters also. This particular government, that particular government. Okay, a devotee should always be neutral in these matters. If he doesn't want to criticize, at least he should not become a part of the party of saying this is good, this is bad. Everything is like just something little better than other. So one should not get carried away. Nowadays, devotees go to an extent saying that so and so leader is almost like an avatar. He's an empowered personality. Some people have gone to tell that that such a leader is actually a Shaktavesh avatar. It's so comical and irrational when devotees speak like this. When these devotees are more than 15, 20 years, 25 years in ISKCON, and when they speak like this, it is like feeling like have they not read scriptures, or is it they are totally not understood the scriptures, or they are just taking advantage of the situation and they want to go for some just some materialistic gain. So it is very important for a genuine devotee to think on the basis of scriptures. Guru Sadhu Shastra, that is very important. When first one needs to be trained under a bona fide spiritual master, or at least a bona fide Shiksha Guru, and then see these things in a very open mind, and then have their perspectives on this on the basis of scriptures. Elsewhere, these things are going to, devotees are just going to become sentimental in these matters also, and they may think that they are following the regulatory principles and everything is going to be taken care of. No, Krishna will not take care of if they are so diluted.
See, the point is, Prabhu, the devotees are not reading books. The devotees are like, people want cheap devotion. So they'll get cheap devotion. Actually, if we are not studying the books, we are no better than Baba Ram Rahim or Asaram Bapu. We are the same level. Just mere sentiment. It's all nonsense. Bhakti without any philosophical basis is a sentimentalism. Today we are worshipping Krishna, tomorrow we will worship Saturn also. Makes no difference at all because we don't even know who is who. So bhakti means, proper education, proper understanding. So most of the devotees, because they don't study books, they don't even know what is happening. It's so common sense, If India is such a religious place, why is India exporting so much meat? Why is there so much gambling going on? Why illicit sex is now promoted? This television and so many things. So why is all of this going on? So simply because no one is studying books. So no one can see. I mean, I'm not having some divine vision to see all of this. It's just common sense. Anyone can see. Actually, government should ban all this tea, coffee, alcohol, cigarettes, and all this nonsense. They should be just, thrown out, kicked out of the country. Meat eating. Like, how can India export meat? Why is meat so promoted? We have an egg from National Egg Coordination Council, NECC, if you Google it. We have Pink Revolution. We had Pink Revolution in 2015-16. How much meat we exported. We became #1 in the world. Not just meat. We are the #1 beef exporter. So we have to see. Adharma is going on. And if we support such things,
The white revolution is corrupted.
yes. Why should there be dairy?
Agriculture is corrupted.
Yeah, why India has Rashtriya chemicals and fertilizers? So you see. So all this is degradation. So because devotees don't study books, they don't know all these things. And therefore they're not really devotees. They're just sentimentalists. They have no faith. It's just some wild sentiment, it's like I support, like, here in Europe, we see that somebody says that, oh, I support Manchester United, I support Arsenal, I support La Liga. So it is something like that. It's just, it's just being a fanboy. It's not bhakti. Bhakti means detachment. Bhakti means proper knowledge. Without knowledge, it is sentiment. It's not bhakti. Even Krishna will not accept it because we don't even know who is Krishna. Yes, Mataji, you have a question also?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, partly I got an answer from what you were just saying to Prabhuji. But still what I think is when we talk of Vrindavan, Bhaumya Vrindavan, so then there are sinful activities going on there also. But how come where a place where Krishna himself has performed all his pastimes and still why it's not protected and it is having such scarce rainfall? It is given here. One of the symptoms of sinful activities. So why it is not protected by Krishna, in spite of having so many devotees, so many other spiritual, highly elevated spiritual beings also staying there?
So this answer, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has given already. So, and not just now, that was around 100 years ago. He said, there are no Vaishnavas in Vrindavan. There are only Sahajiyas. So, Kanishthas and Sahajiyas. Vrindavan is, God knows when was the last time when there was any devotee in Vrindavan really. It's mainly only Sahajiyas. They are not really devotees. Devotee means one who respects Upanishads, one who studies the Vedas. Not some rascal who just sits there. I remember many years ago, around 9 years ago, I was in Vrindavan and there was an American Mataji with us. And we had to buy something from the market and this American Mataji was walking with us. And all these shopkeepers, they were whistling at her. Brajvasis. So what kind of Brajvasi is that? That's nonsense. It's a hog, hog and dog. That's not a Brajvasi. Most of the Brajvasis are third-class people. They're not even Brajvasis. These Agarwals, Guptas, they're not Brajvasis. They're just some random businessmen who have settled down in Vrindavan to make a business out of it. They are not real Brajvasis. How come if they are Brajvasis that they are living there now, when Srila Rupa and Sanatan Goswami and when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited there, why these guys are not there? It's just 500 years ago. So where have these Brajvasis now suddenly sprouted from? They were not there. It was just a forest. Radhakund was not even recognizable. It was a small hole in the ground, some kind of an agricultural pond. When Mahaprabhu uncovered it, then it was dug up and created. So suddenly now we have Brajvasis who are claiming to be living there for generations. So this is not Brajvasi. And they certainly have no respect for the Vedas. Just yesterday I was having a discussion with Keshavananda Prabhu on the same thing. These people, they think that Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they are some kind of outliers. Sadhakas, who just talk about Upanishads and sense control and other things. We are like Siddhas, we have Siddha Pranali. Oh, this is bogus nonsense. I knew one Babaji from Govardhan, I mean, this Radha Kunda. So one of our Finnish devotees was living with him. And then she became old. And this Babaji kicked her out and he got a young Bengali woman. So what kind of Brajavasi is that? Monkeys, not devotees. And that's the reason why, there's such things happening. And not just me, Srila Prabhupada himself said that. So this question was asked by Shyam Sundar Prabhu to Srila Prabhupada. Yes, Prabhupada, Vrindavan is Krishna's own land. So why is it in such a horrible state like a desert? So Prabhupada said, because people are extremely sinful. This happened years ago, 50 years ago. So you see. So, I mean, don't get sentimental when you reach Vrindavan. Anyone who is wearing some funny girly dress and wearing some red cloth and saying Radhe Radhe is not a Brajavasi.
So Prabhuji, this Ramesh Baba and all, they are not Brajvasis.
See, I wouldn't comment on him. And we should follow only Parampara. We should only follow Parampara. See, because, I don't know whether he's a self-realized soul or not. By the way, he's not a Brajavasi. He came from somewhere to Vrindavan also, if you know his history. So you see, he may be a self-realized soul. We don't know that. But he doesn't establish a Parampara. Does he have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra? Does he have commentary on Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita? So we have to understand that. When we are following a Parampara, we have to follow rules and regulations. So what is his teaching? I'm not saying he's right or wrong. My question to you is just this much. What is his teaching? What have you learned from him? So if the answer is that you don't know, yeah, yes. So what do you
But
know?
many ISKCON devotees like really follow and not follow, but worship him and.
Many ISKCON devotees worship Jaggi Vasudeva also. See, I'm not saying what is right, what is wrong. I'm just asking you. So what is the lesson? Prabhupada would not say this is good, this is bad. Prabhupada would only ask one thing. What is his philosophy? What have you learned?
Nothing as such.
So there you go. That's your answer. See, I'm not saying that you have to go out and disrespect him. That he's nonsense or whatever. No, you don't have to do that. What I'm saying is you follow the path perfectly. Have you followed your own Acharya properly? Do you know Prabhupada's books perfectly? So if the answer is no, then why are you going there? Before you have studied high school, why do you want to jump to university? You're getting the point?
Yes, Prabhuji.
You study reference books only after you have finished the textbooks.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hari Hari. Yes, any other questions or comments? Okay, we take the next verse. Tatra kadachit pitra loka kamah survar vanita krida chala dronyam.
Yacha kadachit patra loka kamah suravar vanita krida chala.
Bhagavantam Vishwa Srijam Patim Abhrata Paricharyopakaran.
Bhagavantam Vishwasrijam Patim Abhrita Paricharya
Atmaikagriena Tapasvaya Aradhyam Babhuv.
Atmaikagriena Tapasvaya Babhuva.
Shall I read, Prabhu? Very good.
Yes, Prabhu.
Shall I?
Yes, Prabhu, please read. Translate,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Yeah, translation purport by His Divine Grace from Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. Desiring to get a perfect son and become an inhabitant of Pitraloka, Maharaj Agnidra once worshipped Lord Brahma, the master of those in charge of material creation. He went to a valley of Mandara Hill where the damsels of the heavenly planets come down to stroll. There he collected garden flowers and other necessary paraphernalia and then engaged in severe austerities in worship. Purport. The king became Pitraloka Kama, or desirous of being transferred to the planet named Pitraloka. Pitraloka is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Pitran Yanti Pitrivrataha. To go to this planet, one needs very good sons who can make offerings to Lord Vishnu and then offer the remnants to their forefathers. The purpose of the Shraddha ceremony is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, so that after pleasing him, one may offer prasada to one's forefathers and in this way make them happy. The inhabitants of Pitraloka are generally men of the Karma Kandiyat or fruitive activities category, who have been transferred there because of their pious activities. They can stay there as long as their descendants offer them Vishnu Prasada. Everyone in heavenly planets, such as Pitraloka, however, has returned to earth after exhausting the effects of this pious acts, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.21. Shine Punye Martya Lokam Visanti. Persons who perform pious acts are transferred to higher planets, but when the effects of their pious acts are over, they are again transferred back to earth. Since Maharaj Priyavrata was a great devotee, how could he have begotten a son who desired to be transferred to Pitraloka? Lord Krishna says, Pitrin Yanti Pitrivrataha. Persons who desire to go to Pitraloka are transferred there. Similarly, Yanti Mad Yajino Apimam. Persons who desire to be transferred to the spiritual planets, Vaikuntha Lokas, can also go there. Since Maharaj Agnidra was a son of a Vaishnava, he could have desired to be transferred to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka. Why then did he desire to be transferred to Pitraloka? In answer to this, Goswami Giridhara, one of the Bhagavatam commentators, remarks that Agnidra was born when Maharaj Priyavat was infatuated by lusty desires. This may be accepted as a fact because sons are begotten with different mentalities according to the time of their conception. According to the Vedic system, therefore, before a child is conceived, the Garbhadan Samskara is performed. This ceremony molds the mentality of the father in such a way that when he plants his seed in the womb of his wife, he will beget a child whose mind will be completely saturated with devotional attitude. At the present moment, however, there are no such Garbhadana Samskaras. Therefore, people generally have a lusty attitude when they beget children, especially in this age of Kali. There are no Garbhadana Samskar ceremonies. Everyone enjoys sex with his wife like a cat or dog. Therefore, according to Sastric injunctions, almost all people of this age belong to the Sudra category. Of course, although Maharaj Agnidra had a desire to be transferred to Pitraloka, this does not mean that his mentality was that of a Sudra. He was a Kshatriya. Maharaj Agnidra desired to be transferred to Pitraloka. Therefore, he needed a wife, because anyone desiring to be transferred to Pitraloka must leave behind a good son to offer yearly pinda or prasada from Lord Vishnu. To have a good son, Maharaj Agnidra wanted a wife from a family of demigods. Therefore, he went to Mandara Hill, where the women of demigods generally come to worship Lord Brahma. In Bhagavad Gita 4.12, it is said, Kangshantaha karmanam siddhim yajanta iti iha devataha. Materialists who want quick results in the material world worship demigods. It is also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Aishwarya Praje Shavaha. Those who desire beautiful wives, substantial wealth, and many sons worship the demigods. But an intelligent devotee, instead of being entangled by the happiness of this material world in the form of a beautiful wife, material opulence, and children, desires to be immediately transferred back home, back to Godhead. Thus, he worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Prabhu. So this pastime of Maharaj Priyavrat and his progeny is very important actually. There's so much to be learned from these pastimes, because these pastimes are dealing with personalities who are very much like us. Of course, I mean, there were superhuman activities performed by Maharaj Priyavrat, but notwithstanding that fact, he still lived an ordinary life. He was a great devotee who came back into material existence and then he again left it. Now, Maharaj Agnidhar is very interesting because Maharaj Agnidhar's son is going to be Rishabdev. Maharaj Agnidhar is is going to be the grandson of Maharaj. He will be the grandson of Maharaj Agnidhar, and he would be the personality of Godhead, and he would establish religious principles. Now, Maharaj Agnidhar, he was conceived at a time when Maharaj Priyavrat was overcome by lusty desires. Now, you can imagine, Maharaj Priyavrat had been performing this pastime for millennia, this kind of, this austerity. So many generations came and went, and Maharaj Priyavrat was a renunciate. And now he came in contact with the heavenly damsel. So certainly his mind must have been afflicted with some degree of lust. So therefore, his son Agnidhar got the same consciousness. Of course, Maharaj Priyavrat, when we are saying that Maharaj Priyavrat was affected by lusty desire, it doesn't mean that he became a grossly lusty person. It was like a trace of lusty desire. Therefore, Maharaj Agnidhar desired to be transferred to Pitraloka. He didn't become, like Maharaj Agnidhar did not become a demon. He didn't become a Shudra, low-class man. Maharaj Agnidhar did whatever was done within the domain of Vedic regulations. But still, because his father had lusty desires at that time. So actually there's a principle in Ayurveda also. If there's an only child in the family, or if there are multiple children in the family, then usually the eldest child is not very pious by nature. Because the eldest children are usually conceived in lust, and the youngest children are usually conceived when the parents have become very sober. So it's very interesting thing. Of course, it's not a rule. It all depends on the consciousness of the parents at the time of conception. But here we see that in case of Maharaj Agnidhar, he certainly was affected by these desires. And you can see his younger brothers actually becoming sannyasis. So it's very important that before, actually, especially like, when people want to enter into Grahastha ashram, it's very important really that parents purify their consciousness. So otherwise the child would be born with intelligence, he would have normal intelligence, but he will not take to devotional principles. Like many years ago, we met, His Grace, what was his name? Now I keep forgetting. Haridas Prabhu, His Grace Haridas Prabhu. He was a Bengali disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So this was way back in 2003 or something, many years ago. So we were having a discussion with him, and he was explaining. He said, so many devotees had children who did not become devotees. Practically very few, handful of devotees' children actually became devotees. So we could understand that these devotees had illicit sex. They did not perform purification properly. So see, that's why, and even Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself says, he says, if I had a guarantee that my child would be a pure devotee, I would give birth to hundreds of children. But since there is no guarantee, I would rather remain a brahmachari. So you see, this is the point. So this Grahastha ashram is a very dangerous place if the children become impious or if they are not devotees. Hare Krishna. Yes, any question or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, this second para, said Maharaja Agnidhar desired to be transferred to Pitraloka, and therefore he needed a wife, because anyone desiring to be transferred to Pitraloka must have behind a good son to offer very yearly pinda, prasada, from Lord Vishnu.
Yes.
Why from the Lord Vishnu? To Lord Vishnu hona chahiye na?
I didn't get your question.
It should be to Lord Vishnu. It says, son to offer yearly pind of prasada from Lord Vishnu.
So prasad from Lord Vishnu. The bhoga offering is to Lord Vishnu. The son offers bhog to Vishnu, and that prasad he offers to the Pitra.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, so now there is one very important point regarding this particular instance. So it means that the son also must be a pure devotee, or at least a very elevated devotee. Otherwise, Vishnu will not accept his offering. If the son is not a Vaishnav, then how will Vishnu accept it? So one may think, oh, I have 20 sons, but if they are dull and they are rascals, Vishnu will not accept their bhoga. Then these sons will have no value. Impious sons have no value. The son must be, so first of all, there must be a son, and then that son must also be very pious. Otherwise, one will not be promoted to Pitraloka. So then the son's son must also be pious for the father to stay in Pitraloka. So it's a very dangerous thing. How can you be lusty and pure at the same time? So these are the intricacies of dharma. When we study the Srimad Bhagavatam, we see how Srila Prabhupada is introducing the Vedic culture to us without getting into the intricacies of Sanskrit grammar. So this is the valuable contribution that Srila Prabhupada has made in our lives.
Quite good.
Yes. So any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Prabhu, this Pindadan, in Vedic culture, every person should have a Pindadan. Otherwise, he doesn't get the place. So, and there are people whose sons are not interested at all. So, there is a way out in Gaya, the temple of Vishnu.
Correct.
That you go yourself and make your own Pindadan.
Yes.
So, that's acceptable.
So, like Srila Prabhupada says, this is not necessary. This is not necessary because why do we want to go to Pitraloka? We are planning to go back to Godhead. So even that is not necessary. Just chant very nicely.
No, that's not for Pitraloka. That is for moksha.
Yeah. So you take
offer,
shelter, Krishna is promising, Neha vikramo nashosti pratyavayuna vidyate. So you render devotional service. That is the best guarantee. Because we don't know. If the Brahmana in Gaya is corrupt, he is not able to perform the Anushthan, then that offering would go to waste.
Yeah.
So there's too many dangers in that.
And Gaya is as mischievous as any other religious center.
Yeah. All these places, these so-called religious places are now full of corrupt people.
Right, correct.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, here, it is always said that Shine Punya Martya Lokam Vishanti, means as long as when the pious activities are over, they have to come back. But here it's written that the residents of Pitraloka, they can stay there as long as their descendants offer them Vishnu Prasad. So their pious activities, the duration of their pious activities do not regulate the duration of their stay.
So that is their pious activity. How much pious progeny they had. So at some point, if the progeny is not pious, then they're gone. Then the punya is finished.
Okay, so that is the pious activity which has taken them there, means having a pious progeny.
Yeah, it's like volleyball, As long as you can keep punching the ball, it stays up.
Okay. I got it. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hari. Okay, so we stop here now. Thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Dandavat Pranam.
Pranam Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.